Jai Sri Rajeswary Amman. Very nice to see lots of children here in particular, and all of you here. Thank you for all coming. In our religion, Taraka Mantram is a very important mantra. We have Om Namo Narayanaya. The very important word there is Ra. And also Om Namah Shivaya. And in Namah Shivaya, the important one is Ma. When we join Ra and Ma, we have Rama. So in Rama, the Rama Nama is a really important mantra. And we're very happy today that we have Chinya Mission and Krishnan Bhai here to teach us and educate us on Ramayana. Starting today and every Sunday, between 5 and 6, please kindly tell your friends and more children. It's important we pass this on to the next generation, particularly in England. So that's what I'll say. Jai Sri Ram.
Hari Om. We will start with some opening invocation prayers, and then I will give an introduction of what we are going to cover and go from there. Am I audible enough?
Yeah, if you come.
So some of these shlokas, some of you may know, some you may not know. Just repeat after me. If not, just listen and we can kind of go from there. Om Sahana Bhavatu. Om Sahana Bhavatu. Sahana Bhunaktu. Sahana Bhunaktu. Sahaviryam Karavavahai. Sahaviryam Karavavahai. Tejasvinavam. Tejasvinavam. Dhitamastu. Ma Vidvishavahai. Ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Vakratunda Mahakaya. Vakratunda Mahakaya. Surya Koti Samaprabha. Surya Koti Samaprabha. Nirvignam Kuru Me Deva. Nirvignam Kuru Me Deva. Sarvakaryeshu Sarvada. Sarvakaryeshu Sarvada. We're going to do 2 more shlokas. This we will do in every class, so we'll get used to this. This one is on, we are paying our respects to sage Valmiki, who is the composer, whose story we are going to listen. Kujantam Rama Rameti Madhuram Madhuraksharam Aruhya Kavita Shakham Vande Valmiki Kokilam. And they say no recitation of Ramayana is ever complete without remembering Lord Hanuman. So wherever Ramayana is being recited, Lord Hanuman is somewhere here. So I don't know where he is, but I'm sure we will find him in some time. Manojavam Marutatulya Vegam Jitendriyam Buddhimatam Varishtham Vatatmajam Vanar Mukyam Shri Ramadutam Sharanam Prapadhye. Hari Om, and welcome. Thank you all for coming. My name is Krishnan, and thank you to Krishna for introducing and to the temple for giving us this opportunity. He mentioned my name, but we are actually a team of 3-4 of us. We've got Ram here, Shankar, and Mr. Raghavan. So between the 3-4 of us, we are going to try and learn and come and do this as a team. So hopefully we will all kind of learn in the process. Krishna mentioned about Chinmaya Mission. Some of you may be aware. I'm just going to take a minute to quickly introduce. So Chinmaya Mission was formed in 1951. The main purpose is to take the knowledge of our scriptures, the Vedas, the Upanishads, Bhagavad Gita, and put it in simple English language for people who may not always be aware of Sanskrit and all the different, may not have had the opportunity to study in a Veda Pathshala, etc. So a lot of what we do is linked to study classes on the Bhagavad Gita, on the Upanishads, on various Vedantic texts. And study is a very important aspect, which is what we will be learning here. That's why the study of Ramayana, we call this almost like a Valmiki Ramayana lesson. So yes, it's a lovely story. We will enjoy the story. But our goal in all of this is also about seeing what we can learn from this and how we can use it in our life. So as we go through this, my ask of all of you is listen with an open mind. Some of you may already know the story. Some of you may have watched cartoons of Ramayana, may have seen movies. All that is good, but we are going very much back to the original. We are going to go to Valmiki Ramayana. We will see how he has written. There have been many different people who have written different adaptations of Ramayana. We will touch upon those. But our purpose here was to start with the original text, so that we can all learn and see what that means, how we can try and go from here. So in terms of this class, we will try and keep it very much storytelling focused. So I will ask questions. So if you are asleep, then you'll have to wake up. I will ask quizzes. So we will have to see if you remember or not, because I will be telling things and we will all need to see what you remember, what you don't. If you need a book or pen, that's all up to you, but all that is optional, right? And sometimes we can see, maybe we can have a competition between the parents and the children. We'll see. If depending on how the crowd goes, we can see who knows better and what we can all learn from each other. There are some chairs in the front. As usual, the back seats always get filled up first. But there are some chairs in the front in case you want to come in. That's the price of coming late, that you have to come and sit in the front.
You said you will ask the questions, right?
So for today's class, we thought before we actually get into Ramayana, the story, as I said, many of you may be aware, we thought we will actually first understand Indian knowledge traditions or scriptures. There is, if you ask many other religions, which is your holy book, you will get one name, one God, one name. And many of you are all aware of that. We come to somebody in Sanatana Dharma, which is our holy book. I'm starting with quiz already, so I've not even taught. Yes. Mahabharata is our holy book. Okay. Now we're going to do like a, what is that quiz you do in the Kahoot? We'll do like a Kahoot. We'll see which one gets more points. Yes. Bhagavad Gita. Okay. Bhagavad Gita is our holy book. Which is our holy book?
The Vedas.
The Vedas are our holy book. Okay. What else? Any other takers?
Upanishad.
The Upanishads are our holy book. Okay, my God. 4 people, 4 answers. I'm not getting any. It's like a tough competition now here. Ramayana is our holy book. Okay. So, we can already see that we are here in the midst of, we're not even talking to people from any other religion. In our own midst, when we ask a question like this, we get so many different answers, right? And I think it's important to understand what that structure looks like, not because we are going to get a PhD in any of it, just so we understand where Ramayana fits in the whole scheme of things. So one of the acharyas once, he was asked a similar question. He said, all other religions, they are very simple, they've got one book. Why do you guys confuse it with so much? And he said, other people may have a book, we have a library. So you can come and we have got a big collection of different books that you can pick from. But it's important to understand that in all of this, the primary source of all of our knowledge and our traditions comes from the Vedas. So one of you did say about the Vedas, so we'll talk about it. And from that Vedas have emerged, it's like a tree having many branches giving different fruits. So within the Vedas, which are the 4 Vedas, anyone knows? Have you heard of any 4 Vedas? Rig, Yajur, Sama, Atharva. So the Vedas are one, and Vedas, the root word of the Vedas literally means knowledge. So from that Vedas, over time it became humanly impossible, because with every generation you see laptops and computers and mobile phones, with every new version they get better. But humans, it was happening the other way around. With every new generation, our ability to remember, our ability to process was becoming lower and lower. So there came a time when people could not process the whole Vedas in one place, but it was all set through communication. So at that time, a rishi called Sage Vyasa came, and he compiled that one Veda into 4 books. So that's why you see 4 books. It's one Vedas, but it's compiled into 4 books. But it is not just the Vedas. And the one thing in Hindu, in Sanatana Dharma, is we never made a distinction between spiritual studies and material studies. Because we figured that the goal of everything ultimately is happiness. Whether you want to be a doctor, whether you want to construct something, indirectly or directly, we are all seeking that same happiness. So they found a way to integrate spirituality, integrate the real purpose in everything we did. So along with the Vedas, there were a number of other texts that were given. I won't touch all of them. But one of them that came was called Puranas and Itihasa. Okay? And that is most relevant for us today. Itihasa literally means thus it, or thus indeed it happened. So Puranas and Itihasas are both stories. The only difference between the two is within Itihasa, those stories were narrated as they were happening. So the authors lived around the time when these stories were happening. So it's almost like a live commentary. See, Rama is doing this, Mahabharata, that's all happening. So the sages were doing as it was happening. In Puranas, some of them may not always have been around at the same time. Puranas have got slightly more creative license. So some stories, not all stories will necessarily be true. So you take an example of, I heard about this earlier, Fox and the Grapes. Has anyone heard the story, Fox and the Grapes? Sour grapes. A fox is trying to eat grapes. It realizes the grapes are sour and it's not able to reach the grapes. And finally the fox says, the grapes must be sour. You know, we learn about this. Now none of us go and ask, who was that fox? Was there really a grape? Did he try to jump? We are not interested. We only want to know the message. So in the Puranas, you will find some creative license applied to convey a point. But the point they are conveying is the same point that's already in the Vedas. So the beauty of our culture is it recognizes that every individual is likely to have different tastes. If I tell everybody now you have to take a bead and now you have to chant something 10 times, after 15 minutes half this group will be gone. Some like music, some prefer maybe doing puja, some like to read, some like to meditate, and all of us like stories. So out there they figured that we will give everybody a nice buffet. You pick what you want. If you like North Indian, we've got a menu for that. If you are more Chinese, we'll give you something for that. So in the same way, in our scriptures, there is one message of the purpose of life, what we are trying to do. But depending on the audience, they found a way to target every person in a means that worked best for them. Because ultimately, they were very clear, our rishis were very clear, that this is a journey from myself into myself. This is an inward journey, and therefore it makes most sense to give each person, depending on where they are, the tools you need for that transformation. So Itihasa is where there are 2 Itihasas. Which are the 2 Itihasas? Mahabharata and Ramayana. And what is a very important text within the Mahabharata?
Gita.
The Bhagavad Gita, correct. So all your answers are correct because each of these can be taken, and in many ways each of these can be a summary. So if you don't have time to read all the Vedas and spend the next 16 years in a Pathashala, that's okay. We can start with Ramayana, we will learn the main messages, and hopefully whenever time comes and you feel like reading, you can go and dive deep into the Vedas. But the essence of the Vedas, the essence of what our scriptures say, the goal of life, is very much captured in these texts. So in this series of sessions, which may last 4 months, 6 months, I don't know, we have no specific agenda, we will take as long as it takes. We are going to be covering the text called Ramayana, which is part of the Itihasa, but all of it finally fits under the Vedas. So the next time somebody asks you, which is your holy book, the answer is the Vedas, but there are different books each of us can take to be able to kind of go. Next book. Okay, so with that done, let's talk about Ramayana. Okay, so how many of you do not know the story of Ramayana? Let's see, if anybody is saying who's Ramayana, what is Ramayana? Anybody like that? Somebody's hands are half up, so you know Rama, but you don't know Yanam. Or do you not know fully? So some know, some don't. Okay, we will learn it. That's fine, right? So this text is written by sage Valmiki. So this is the original Ramayana, as it is called, is Valmiki Ramayana. Valmiki Ramayana has got 24,000 shlokas. So if you thought Harry Potter was big, take a pause. Valmiki Ramayana is 24,000 shlokas. If you thought Valmiki Ramayana was big, Mahabharata has 100,000 shlokas. So some of the scale is unimaginable, but don't worry, we are not going to learn all 24,000 shlokas one at a time, because that will take a lot of time. But we will pick some of the most essential verses where these are relevant, and we can also learn a few of them along the way. Ramayana is divided into 7 chapters that are called Kandas. So there is Balakanda, which is the birth and the childhood of Rama. After that there is Ayodhya Kanda. After that there is Aranya Kanda, when they go to the forest. Then there is Kishkinda Kanda, when they are trying to rescue Sita. Then there is a very beautiful story called the Sundara Kanda, which is where our main hero comes of this Hanumanji. Then there is Yuddha Kanda, where the actual war happens, and then there is Uttara Kanda. So 7 chapters, we will go through that as we go along. Now, alongside Valmiki Ramayana, inspired by sage Valmiki, 100 plus variations of Ramayana and different adaptations have taken place in different languages, and many of them have taken their own creative license. Some of you up north would be aware of Ramcharitmanas, which was written by sage Tulsidas. In the south, Kamba Ramayana is very famous. So there have been many sages. In fact, the glory of Ramayana has spread even to places like Bali, Cambodia. Globally, a lot of different countries and cultures have been inspired by the Ramayana. So for this discussion, as I said, for today's session and this whole talk we are doing, we will predominantly focus on Valmiki Ramayana. But where needed, we will maybe touch upon any references to other texts. Any questions so far? Is this going okay? Too fast? Too slow? Making sense? Okay, good. So, now before we actually start Ramayana, maybe we should touch upon the story of the Rishi who wrote Ramayana. Okay, the story of Rishi Valmiki. So let's dive into that story a bit. So, Valmiki, before he became a Rishi, can you guess what was he? What was he doing?
Robbing people.
Yes, he was robbing people. Now that's not the only path to becoming a sage, so please don't take that as a cue or a hint. But this person, his name was Ratnakar, and he was a vicious robber, vicious dacoit. Now there are different adaptations. Some of what we are going to say is from one of our Puranas, Skanda Purana. But Valmiki, as he was known then, Ratnakar, was a very violent dacoit, and he and his group used to hang around. We're talking 6,000-7,000 plus years ago. He and his team of 7-8 people would hang around in the forest, hiding in different places, almost like waiting for a prey. And yes, my sweetie, do you have a question? No. Okay. So as he would go there, and in those days people did not have vehicles and transportation, so they had to, even if they have to go from one village to another or one town to another, they have to often pass through a forest. And his name was kind of really feared, because people would say, try and go during the day, try and go in groups, carry enough ammunition if you have to, because it's very hard to fight him. Really very powerful, very strong, muscularly built, and extremely violent and vicious. So people would often, obviously you would lose your jewelry, etc., but even life can be at stake. And he would almost go around with impunity, because he knew that he was so strong. Even the king and his the generals, etc., were not able to catch him. Now this went on for many years. Valmiki was married, Ratnakar, as he was named, he was married. He had a child, he had an old father who he was taking care of. And through that whole journey, people were really scared. Now one day, through that forest, passed sage Narada. So sage Narada was passing through that forest, and as he was passing, and what do these sages carry? They don't carry a lot of money. He was carrying a kamandalu and with a stick, and he was just chanting the name of Narayana, and as he was walking, Ratnakar and his men are hiding, and they're saying, who's this person who's actually walking? Because most people who walk through the forest are, looking left, right, is somebody there? Will somebody attack me? Here is one person who's completely unaffected. He's just walking like, he's kind of strolling through the Thames or any other park. He's kind of walking through. And as late in the evening, Ratnakar comes in front of him and he says, hand over whatever you have got. Do you not know that this entire forest is actually ruled by me? How dare you kind of walk out here? Now Naradji looks at Ratnakar and he says, I've got this pot and I've got this bag. If you want, you can take it. He says, nonsense. I'm sure you're hiding something. You can't just get away like this. And Ratnakar notices for the first time in his life, he has seen someone whose eyes do not show fear. Because till that time, every person, whether he was a rich person, a merchant, a king, a general, a warrior, however well built or however much strength that person seemed to have, the moment they would see Ratnakar and his army and his group of bandits, fear would be very evident in the eyes. And here was one person who was showing no fear. Now that, in a way, almost kind of made Ratnakar uncomfortable. That who is this person who actually does not have fear? And he asks him and he says, I need whatever you have. And Naradji tells him, you can have whatever, I've told you what I have and I can give you, you can keep this bag also. But do you realize, Ratnakar, that what you are doing right now, every action is going to have a consequence. So when you do actions like this of robbing people, of killing people, of scaring people away, taking what does not belong to you, you are going to get results according. You're going to get, as they call, bad karma. Are you sure about it? And do you know that? And Ratnakar then starts a big argument about what is the point. Don't tell me all these philosophical things, because I used to also work in the king. I was in the army at that time, and at that time I also had to go and fight wars, kill people. And at one stage, the king and his men just completely outlawed me because I did something that they were not comfortable with. So, like everybody else who has to earn a living, I also have to earn a living. And my way of earning a living is by looting people. So that is my profession. Who are you now to tell me that doing my profession is bad? So what I am doing is not just for myself. What I am doing is helping my son study or get a livelihood. I am buying the bangles and the chains that I am stealing. I am giving it to my wife. Right? I am bringing food for my family. So I have no problem because I keep very little for myself. You see, I'm not taking a lot of this. Most of this is for my family. So all this bad karma, the negative effect that you're talking about, I have no problem because it will go to them also, or at least they will have to share. Fair point, like partnership, you want to share, so you kind of do the sharing. So Naradji looks at him and says, okay, is that so? Do you really think they'll be willing to share? He says, why not? For all these years, I have been bringing them food and everything and all the gifts. They have never once said, why are you bringing all this? They have never asked. So now when I ask them that if at all you have to pay the price for this, why should they have a problem? So Naradji puts a proposal to him. He says, you know what, Ratnakar? You can keep your men here and you can tie me. I will wait here. You go home and you go tell your father, your wife, your family, you tell them that I met this person who has told me all of this, and he has asked that if you can all take 20%, 5%, 10%, some share of the bad karma that I am going to get, because I have done bad things. No doubt about that. I am going to get bad karma. So can you take a little bit so I don't have to carry all of it? And if they take it, you come, I'm anyway waiting here, you can kill me. Sorry.
Could you please explain what is karma for the kids?
Yeah, sure. The kids know it, maybe the adults know it. So what is karma? Karma is, in very simple terms, it is like the result of an action. So if I want good results, I should do what actions? Good action, right? If I want to have a mango tree, what seed should I plant? Mango. If I plant a mango tree, can I get apples from there? No. So in the same way, if I want to have a comfortable life, if I want to have money, if I want to be happy, then what kind of action should I be doing? Good action. Simple, no? Very simple rule. We all know that. But Ratnakar was a little bit confused. So, okay, fine, we'll see. So, Ratnakar immediately runs home and his old father is waiting there. His son is very young, he's there, and his wife is there. So, he first goes and tells his old father and son. And he says, this is what happened. And the sage has told me that can you please take a little bit of my bad results that I'm going to get. Maybe I will fall ill, maybe I'll have, I don't know, I'll have a tough life later. I don't want to take it all because you all have enjoyed with me. Please share. Let's as a family now share. No, sharing is caring. He tells them that. So his father and son looks at him and they say, listen, son does not know much, so he's too young. The father says, listen, I'm dependent on you, right? I have taken care of you. I did not ask how you got the money. How you get the money is your problem because it's your duty to take care of me in my old age. So if you do that through good actions, you will get good results. If you do that through bad actions, you will get bad results. I cannot share that thing, and I don't want to also because I have got enough of my own problems. So I don't want to take your bad actions and add to my big baggage. So Ratnakar is shocked, but he says, my wife will not desert me. Wife always, partner. He has promised during marriage that I will be always with you. He says, my wife will not desert me. So he goes to his wife and he tells her that the whole thing, and he says, at least you, I can understand my father, but you and I, we are like partners, life partners. So will you please share some of the bad results I'm going to get so that I don't have to take it on? And you know what his wife tells him? She says, Swami, when I married you, I promised to share all your happiness, joys and sorrows. So that I will share. But I did not promise to share your good results and your bad, your sins and merits. Even if I want to, I cannot share it. So unfortunately, if bad things are happening to us, obviously I have no choice. I will be with you through good times and bad times. But after this life, in the future when you have your next life, etc., I cannot share it. So I am very sorry. The moment Ratnakar hears this, it hits him like a rock. Because all this while, he was very clear in his thinking that what he is doing is right. What he is doing is not just for him but for his family. And he had never thought of the consequences of his action. And in that state of shock, he leaves his house and goes straight to Naradji, who is still waiting there. All his other men have left. Naradji is waiting for him. And he falls straight at Naradji's feet and says, I have no idea what I've been doing, but now I'm feeling completely clueless. For the first time in my life, I don't know what I should do. So please guide me. So Naradji says, it's okay. Your future is not determined just by our past. Obviously, whatever past actions, we have to kind of play the result for this. But what actions you take today can change your future. So he tells him, now that you understood the results of your action, now start to focus your mind and chant the name of Rama. Ratnakar tries that for some time and he says, I'm not able to, this word is not coming. My mind is completely, so filled with, looting and stealing and jewels and all that stuff. So much violence in my mind. I'm not even able to say, like Krishna was saying, Om Namo Narayana, Ra and Ma. It sounds very simple, but I'm not able to say that. So Naradji gives him another trick. He says, in this forest, what do you see around you? You can see lots of trees. And trees in Tamil is called maram or mara. So you just say mara, 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 mara. Can you say? Can we all say together? Like Ratnakar will help him? What? Mara, 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 mara. What is happening? Slowly, Mara became Rama and Ratnakar did not even know. But he became so steadfast in his concentration and he almost went into such high levels of tapas because he was very clear that he had no other solution. No amount of money or wealth or anything is going to save him, and therefore his focus was super clear. And they say over time, his concentration was so high that ants started to gather around him and they made almost like an ant hill. And he still did not know, because he was, by that time he had lost consciousness of his physical body. He was just completely focused on chanting that Mara Mara, because Naraji had told him that he had nothing else. Such was the power that eventually, when that tapas reached a certain level, all the austerities, Brahmaji came down and he saw like a whole ant hill, which in Sanskrit is called Valmika. And Brahmaji, he always has magical water. He puts it, all the Valmika goes away, and Ratnakar is now standing. Now he's shining, his face, his hair, his whole body is shining with the luster of his tapas. And Brahmaji tells him, from now on, because you've effectively been born from this Valmika, you will be named Valmiki and you will go on to do bigger things, and blesses him. And that is the transformation of a robber, a dacoit, into sage Valmiki, who then goes on to writing such a big epic. Now, most people don't really know about his past. So our Gurudev often used to say that behind every sinner is actually a sage who's waiting for redemption and recovery. And what this shows is really just when a person takes charge of their lives, then they can completely change which direction they want to go. So that is the story of Valmiki. Any questions before we go to the last part of today's class, and then we will conclude? Any questions? No. Okay. So, we have not even started the story of Ramayana, but I think it's important for us to understand why we should study the Ramayana. What is the benefit of Ramayana, and in what angles can we look at this epic and learn from it? Okay, so I'm going to share a few, and then as we go along the story, obviously we will see some more. So the first thing is, Ramayana is a literary masterpiece. Sage Valmiki is often referred to as the Adi Kavi, means the first poet, because it is for the first time that such an epic was written in the form of poetry. And if you see the way Sage Valmiki brings out the different characters, what is going on in their minds, how they take different decisions, just even if you don't know Sanskrit, just listening to the verses, reading it, obviously if you know it, even better, but it's considered a literary masterpiece. So Ramayana in that sense, just purely, even if you ignore all these spiritual, religious side of things, just reading it is considered a beautiful poem and almost a benchmark in how poems should be written. And that has inspired people later like Kalidas and many others to kind of write. So that's one aspect to it. Now Rama as a person, as a personality, and this story of Ramayana has inspired, it's such an important part of our culture, of Sanatana Dharma. It has inspired people for millennia, right? We're talking thousands of years now. Tomorrow is such an important event happening in India, and these celebrations are happening across the world. Now imagine nowadays, we see people who are role models and superheroes. Their shelf life is what? 5 years, 10 years, 50 years maybe? Who do we remember like famous people from 200-300 years ago? Hardly, right? And here is somebody whose story and whose life has stood the test of 7,000 plus years. Now that in itself says something about, right? I mean, even if you don't believe in all these religious and whether Rama is a god or not, there is something about his life. Now if we think about the life of Rama, right, and what can we learn from the life of Rama, ironically, even though Rama came down as the Lord himself, right, in that sense, but he chose to live the life as a normal human being. And if you look at the story of Ramayana and you look at Rama's life, we will find that it is a story of one tragedy after another. So it has not been like, hey, I'm God, you know what, dude, please don't argue with me, I know what to do, I've got all magical powers, nothing, right? He was supposed to be crowned the king. Next day, he was told, go to the forest. He goes to the forest, somebody comes, takes his wife away. Okay. He then goes, fights that war, brings her back, then people complain he has to send her back to the forest. So at every stage, Rama's life, if you look at the events, has been one challenge after another. But what makes the character most relevant for us is how Rama dealt with those situations. How through favorable and unfavorable situations, Sri Ram was able to stand by his values that he had picked were right for him, right? So the values of dharma, of righteousness, how he was able to stand by those. Now, when we think about the Ramayana, there are two elements that will come out a lot. So as you look at the story, as you listen to the story, keep these in mind. One is plurality, and the other is righteousness. So in Ramayana, Rishi Valmiki brings a number of different characters, right? And each of them have got their own different nuances. So you take someone like Vishwamitra or Vasishtha. Vishwamitra was a king who then chose to live the life of a rishi. On the other hand, you have someone like Ravan, who was well versed in the Vedas. He was a Brahmana, but he chose to do acts which were really heinous, right? You have a brother like Lakshmana, who chose to spend 14 years with his brother in the forest, and you have another brother, Vibhishan, who chose to go against his brother. And you will find throughout the stories there are many such personalities and characters, and Valmiki, like a brilliant director, is bringing all in front of us without making any judgment and allowing us to just learn from each of them as to how they played their role, how they adapted and responded to different situations, and what that means for us. So it's almost a manual of life. It's a manual of how to deal with situations and what we can learn from them. So it's a very practical text in that sense for us to learn and see because we don't have control on the situations that will come to us. The only thing we have control on is how we respond to those. And Ramayana, in that sense, is a brilliant epic because it shows when some people saw greed, how they responded, when others saw greed, how differently they responded, and what that meant. So it's filled with role models. So my only ask as you go through this whole journey is keep everything you know or have heard or watched about the Ramayana aside. Don't come with any preconceived notions. We will follow the text. If you are interested in books you want to read, we can refer you to some of those or even bring it here and you can buy those. But let's just go at this with a very open mind. Let's see what the story has to teach us. The final thing, maybe more so for the adults and children, is while it's a beautiful story with lots of twists, turns and very, very fascinating, there is also a very deep spiritual undercurrent throughout the Ramayana. So for those who are interested, you can look at it from that perspective. So whether you are a literary person, whether you want to look at it in terms of role models, whether you just want to enjoy the story, or whether you want to think about this from what does this mean for me from a spiritual journey perspective, Ramayana has something to offer to all of us. Okay? I'm just going to pause here. Any questions before we think we've got 10 minutes, we might conclude, but we don't need to take all of the time. We're just going to conclude with some closing prayers. But we've got time if you've got any questions. Yes?
No, I think it was interesting to understand the basic concept, how he went from a thug to who he became. But also when he said he wanted to share his burden, no one was really, like the father didn't want to do it. But in the reality, as a father of a child, you always want to take that burden off, but he didn't want to do it. And he also mentioned he had burden even before taking the additional burden from Ramayana. So he shows that was he also in some sort of bad environment before all of this was happening? Or I don't know the backstory.
Sure. So I think there are 2 points here, right? One is obviously as a story there are some aspects here. The second thing is we must all remember that ultimately, and that's what the story of Ratnakar is telling us, that ultimately we are all carrying our own cross, if you want to put it that way, right? We are all coming with our baggage. If you are my son and you are hungry, I cannot eat to fulfill your hunger. There are some things that only you can do. So I may cry for you, I may lose sleep over it, I may go to 20 temples and do pujas for you, but there are some things that only you can experience. Right? So that's the one thing. The second thing, when we use the word of burdens, etc., we have to remember they are not always bad. Right? Now we all think of ourselves as humans or beings who are trying to dabble with spirituality. Our Vedas are very clear that we are all spiritual beings who are currently having a human stint. Right? So from that perspective, This is just one chapter in a book that has been going on for very long. It is up to us whether we want to put an end to the book or keep having a few more rides in the joyride of life. So burden is not just in a negative sense of all bad things.
Yeah.
Even to experience good things, you have to take a life.
Yeah.
Means you have to go to school, you have to study, you have to go through GCSE. So be clear, if you want that, we can go through all that. But it's more than just that. But the main point is, to do my duty, what choices I make, only I can bear the result. Even if you benefited from it, you cannot take that. That's the product.
Thank you.
Any other points? Otherwise, we will conclude with some closing prayers, and we'll see you all next Sunday. Hopefully, we'll have to ask Krishna to put a few more chairs, and I'll also keep going back, and we'll get there. Okay. So just repeat after me. Purnamada Purnamidam Purnaha Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vasishyate Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Harihi Om.
Sorry guys, can I say one thing? First, I want to thank Chinia Mission and the team here, and Krishnan in particular. But I just want to add one slight point. Was really powerful was the name Lord Rama. When Valmiki chanted Ram, 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 that got, from a criminal, he became the great sage. So children are here. Tomorrow is the important day in Ayodhya. Just one mantra. Just pray in the morning, Ram, 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 16 times a day. That's enough. Just say Ram, 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 16 times. Jai Shri Rajeswary. Thank you.